Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the August 19th, 2025 meeting of the Littleton Conservation Commission. We'll go ahead and open the meeting. First things first, we'll start with the approval of meeting minutes. In front of us, we have the minutes from August 5th, 2025. Did anybody have any edits to those minutes? I just had a couple of very minor things on the enforcement order discussion for 3 Sarah Indian Way. About halfway down the paragraph, it says, Mr. Dolan stated that in June 2025, Littleton Electric removed 2 trees that were on Mr. Dolan's property. So since he's saying what happened, we should probably have it say that were on his property and had fallen. And then the very last thing that I noticed was under the discussion for 48 Hartwell, the certificate of compliance. It says Mr. Pearson, but it's MRTR period. And that's all I had. All right. Well, if that's all of the edits, would anybody like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes as amended?
I move that we approve the August 5th minutes as amended.
Perfect. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Perfect. We'll do a roll call vote then. Ed.
Ed Foltz, aye.
Michael.
Michael Livingston, aye.
Kyle. Oh, Kyle, I think you're on mute. Oh, we still can't hear you.
Feel aye.
Oh, there we go. And myself, aye. It is unanimous. Perfect. So next we'll jump into our administrative discussions for the night, starting with the enforcement order at 0 Fort Pond. Is anybody here to speak to this?
I will promote Steve and share the stamped plan that he has sent over since the last meeting.
Perfect. Excellent. So there is the stamp plan. Steve, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. Did you just want to give us a brief rundown of everything that we're seeing here?
Sure. Basically, at the last meeting, I did not have the plan in front of the commission, and that was all that you were looking for with regard to where I was with being in compliance with the enforcement order. That was the last portion of what was required of me. So you now have it. And I would like to get the enforcement order lifted and proceed with the construction of the sitting area and the path. And then we also had a discussion with at the last meeting that I would show the elevations on the as-built, because Sarah wanted to make sure that I was slightly below the existing grade with the path.
Perfect. And you've included that on the plan, Steve?
No, that'll be on the as-built once.
Oh, on the as-built. Perfect. Thank you. All right. How do the commissioners feel about this? Does anybody have any questions, comments? All right. Hearing none, would somebody like to perhaps make a motion?
I move that we lift the enforcement order for 0 Fort Pond, DEP 2040988.
Perfect. Do we have a second?
Well, I guess we're not lifting it.
Second.
Would anybody like to second?
Second.
Perfect. All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Ed.
Ed Foltz, aye.
Kyle.
Maxfield, aye.
Michael.
Michael Livingston, aye.
And myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
Take care.
You too. All right, moving right along. Did we want to jump into the Lakeshore Drive discussion, or Tim, did you want to quickly touch on 15 Powers?
I think either one works.
Sure.
Whatever you guys would like. With Carl here, I'm going to promote him over.
Perfect. So it is, we still got a good 10 minutes before our next public hearing. So why don't we go ahead and jump into the Lakeshore Drive parcel U12-14-0 discussion.
Sure. And so where we left off at the last meeting was we were going to talk to town council about all of the docks, watercrafts, and other things that are installed on this parcel over on Lakeshore Drive, and kind of develop a timeline, tentative timeline, and discuss that at this meeting for what this topic would look like going forward and getting discussed by not only by us but also with the select board and also with Parks and Rec. And Kyle was able to attend the meeting with town council, and I can't remember if any other commissioners were also there.
I was there as well, Tim.
You were, Michael. Okay. I've put together a tentative timeline. So if you want, I can run through that and we can discuss what you guys think.
Sure.
And I wasn't sure how much involvement you guys wanted to have with the select board and Parks and Rec, if we wanted to do a joint meeting with them to discuss this. So in addition to this parcel on Long Lake, there's also another parcel, and I don't have the parcel ID in front of me, but I know that it is located on Queen Road. So it's in between Queen Road and Long Lake itself. That parcel is not under the care, custody, and control of us, but under the select board. And that parcel has, I know of at least one dock on that parcel from what I can see from the aerial imagery. So I'm assuming we would want to be consistent across, all town properties with our policy on these issues. So the tentative timeline that I've put together is we can have a joint meeting with Parks and Rec and Select Board if you guys so choose. There's a Select Board meeting on September 8th that we can do, or we can have them come to our September 23rd meeting. We could schedule the public hearing where we actually open this up for public input at our meeting on October 8th, or what might be a better option, because I suspect we would be getting a lot of public input at this public hearing, would be maybe we should have a special meeting. Because if we talk about this in addition to whatever we have on the agenda for that meeting, we might go, beyond 11 p.m. We do have a 3-week gap in between our September 2nd meeting, and I believe it's the September 23rd meeting. So we could possibly do a special meeting in between those. We would just need to get this figured out pretty soon because we need to give ample time to get something posted in the newspaper. So we need 2 weeks before the public hearing to have the ad posted in the newspaper. And then we also have to give out or send out the abutter notification to those within the Long Lake neighborhood area.
Well, I'll just mention again that it'd be better to move as quickly as we can without, being inconsiderate, just as people do leave for the winter. And, if they need to have time to get the things out of the water and what have you. I know myself that the water gets cold, and the sooner the better.
Yeah, it's a good point.
It's a Michael's point too. I think we want to be careful as well too to gather plenty of input, before acting too quickly as well. Just to get a feel for how the neighborhood feels and the practicality of getting this plan underway.
So I think council disagrees with that, and I kind of disagree with that too, unfortunately, Andrew, where right now we're violating the WPA. This isn't a permitted docks and whatnot, and council was very careful to make sure we understood that it's not really up for discussion with town input. Like we could hold an open meeting, but we're not looking for input. Where it's like we did a town meeting, so we made sure we gathered everybody that it affected, or everybody was made aware and had the opportunity to hear us. But more so, we needed to be pretty direct and say, this is what's going to happen. It's not really up. It's not up for discussion. They're violating the WPA by having Wetlands Protection Act with these docks being in place, and neighbors are constantly asking Tim and whoever for if and when they can put docks in, and they're telling them no, right? So it looks like there's some special treatment type stuff going on. So council made a pretty good point with that.
So
Gotcha.
what's the intent of the meeting then?
I think the intent would be to, rather than just throwing a darts at the neighborhood to figure out who owns these docks, is to post the meeting. So we have to send out notification to everybody that's abutting the lake there and say, we're gonna have a public meeting. We're gonna tell you all at once what's going on. You're gonna hear from us what the problem is, what the issue is, the concern, and why we're doing this. Council wanted to move even faster. They wanted, when we had this, say, you need to get these docks out within 2 weeks type thing.
Oh, wow.
I think I would be a little bit more amenable to that, especially with Mike's point where people leave for the winter, where, if it's a good faith type thing and there's a particular homeowner that leaves for the winter and they say, we'll take it out, ice out in the spring when we come back. That would be fine with me. That we'd have that discussion obviously with everybody else. But I do think it's something that needs to get put in motion, or it sounded like it should be something that's put in motion pretty quickly. So Tim, going to your point with like select board versus us going to them and them coming to us, I'd say we go to them, because who knows when they would come to us, if they would, honestly.
Don't they take the docks out for the winter anyway?
I don't know that. You don't have to. I guess it depends on the dock. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, it depends on the location. I mean,
Okay.
for me, the ice will drag the dock away. Other locations, it doesn't matter. So,
Sure.
just
Then I
depends.
think we should have it at our earliest opportunity, whatever that says on the calendar. If it's too early or too late rather for September 2nd, then we consider 9th or 16th.
Yeah, and so it might, the only thing of going too fast with our next meeting would be what Tim had mentioned, if we want to discuss it with the select board and Parks and Rec first, and say, get their support maybe, or let them know what's happening, so that people don't go to them up in arms, pitchforks, and say,
Sure.
hey, what's going on? What is this Conservation Commission doing here?
There's not much they can do about it, right?
No,
I mean, yes, I'm not saying from a straight, good to have all the backing you can get, no question. I'm just wondering.
Well, they're involved too, though. I think that one of their
they own
properties on the lake has a dock, so we need to be in concert.
So they would be having to remove their dock as well, right? I feel like I'm missing something here that we're saying that the docks are illegal. We're saying we want them out of there. And then we get to that point, we say, okay, now maybe we shouldn't.
I don't think we're saying that.
I'm missing something. No, that's why I'm asking. I feel like I'm missing something.
So maybe I can help clarify. So I guess we kind of all want to be on the same page. We don't want Parks and Rec. I already made Parks and Rec and Mark Rombacher and Kara Morrison aware of this is the path that we're going down now. And, there's likely going to be some discussions between Conservation Select Board and Parks and Rec about this. And I'm sure, they have things that they want to discuss regarding this. And I think that's kind of the point of having the joint meeting with them. Right now, as it exists on our one parcel over there, U12-14-0, the one that runs from Beach all the way to Aspen on Lakeshore Drive. There is one permitted dock on that parcel, and it is Parks and Rec's dock that they installed and got permitted from us. They got an order of conditions, I believe it was last year, for an additional fishing dock. I believe the language said it was for fishing and for non-motorized boat launch access.
Mm-hmm.
All of the other docks don't have permits. There was no approval from the commission for them to put it up. And so, we get people that that have called us and said, we asked, a year ago if we could put in a dock. You told us no. Well, now there's an extra dock there, and you guys aren't doing anything about it. So,
Did council do that title check? Is that where that's all coming from?
I meant to check with them today because I hadn't heard back. I sent them. It was only maybe a total of 6 or 7, including the 2 on Long Lake. I sent them all those the 6 or 7 properties or parcels, but I haven't heard back from them yet. So I will.
So just so everybody else knows, council was going to do a quick title check to make sure there wasn't some sort of easement running through any of those properties that would lead to a permitted dock. They didn't seem to think so, but it was one of those cover our bases, check all the boxes we can. So they're supposed to be looking into that just to make sure we're not overstepping somewhere that somebody does have an easement that we're unaware of.
Does that make sense, Ed?
Yeah, it makes sense. Well, what does it mean to the calendar now?
So I guess the 2 things we should really nail down are when we have the joint meeting, and it sounds like if we want to go to the select board and have the joint meeting at one of their meetings, their next one that we can get it on the agenda for is September 8th.
I mean, we could get on their agenda. I still think what you had said about a special meeting, can we do a joint special meeting like that? I know it's getting even more complicated.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why we can't do that. My thought was having the special meeting just dedicated to the public hearing that we open at our meeting. But I mean, if
I think we go to everybody first, on that September 8th and say, here's what we're thinking, so that they don't find out, or they don't just have to pop in on our special meeting.
Yeah,
it's just you and the select board talking, which I'm totally comfortable with you talking to the select board, but it'd be nice if the 3 entities get together and kind of discuss it first.
Yeah, and in the name of efficiency, if we could all do it at once, us select board and Parks and Rec.
Get them to come to this that September 8th meeting. I don't think I'll be traveling that evening, so I probably can't make that. I'll try to. Are they all in person? Or are they?
I believe so.
Yeah, so hopefully somebody else could make that from Conservation Commission. I won't be able to make that.
And so, sorry, I didn't mean to. What did you say, Andrew?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, all right, and kind of wrap things up. But Tim, did you have
Yeah, so if we can get on their agenda and have that joint meeting on the 8th, are you guys more inclined to have a special meeting to discuss, to open it up, the public hearing, or do you want to throw it on one of our pre-existing meeting dates agendas with other, all the other items that are going to be on that agenda?
If it was able to be time boxed so strictly.
That's what I was just gonna say. If we put it on one of our normal meetings, we kind of have a set time frame, right, where we can not necessarily be rude, but say we have to move on from this.
Yeah.
If there's a reason to continue having that discussion again, then maybe. But
Okay.
The only downside of doing that, Ed, would be if we do say we only have 15 minutes, and then there could be some uproar that not everybody got to speak their mind. Again, not that it really matters. I'm willing to listen to people, but it's not going to change the outcome.
The one question I could see coming from folks, though, would be, you gave a special permit to Park and Rec to put a dock, so how do I get a special permit? That's the one question I can see that we need to have a solid answer for.
That's, I think, simple enough that special permit is for the town use. It's not a privately used dock. So I'm comfortable saying that.
No, I'm just saying that question will come up.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So.
Okay, so would you guys want to do this open this public hearing on our September 23rd meeting?
That seems to make the most sense that way. Like Michael said, that I don't know when people leave, Michael, but that hopefully will give some thought, and we can discuss maybe at our next meeting what the duration of that, what that time frame will be when we say, hey, gotta get rid of these docks. And again, that 2 weeks seemed pretty aggressive to me.
But even if folks are leaving, we're remote, so they can dial in.
No, it's about when.
But just whether they find out about it or not.
If they find out in November that they need to take the dock, but they've already gone south, then it doesn't help it.
I was hearing it from a different view, but I get it.
But we can have that discussion maybe at our next meeting. Tim, if you can keep this as an administrative item, we
Sure.
can just kind of firm up more of those details. That way we can move on, Andrew. And we'll kind of
Sure. And Tim, in the meantime, if you could reach out to the TA's office and perhaps get us on the next select board agenda, at least tentatively, then on the
Yeah.
second, we can kind of rehash this and just come up with a game plan from there.
Yep, we'll do.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So it is now 7:51. We'll go ahead and open up our 7:45 p.m. Public hearing, notice of intent for 87 Tehadawon Road, construction of a 2-family residence.
So, Andrew, they actually requested a continuance. So if we can open and close that and continue that to the September 2nd meeting.
Perfect. So we did officially open the hearing, so we'll go ahead and continue it at the request of the applicant to September 2nd. So our next public hearing isn't until 8 p.m. for 97 and 99 Mill Road. So why don't we circle back to administrative discussions? Next up, we've got 15 Powers updates.
Yep. So I have been in contact with John McGagan and been out there a couple times in the last few weeks. I was out there on Friday, and at that point, the whole slope and the top of the slope had been loamed and seeded. The slope is temporarily stabilized with straw, and John's timeline on the rest of the restoration, which is the planting of the bushes along the toe of the slope, he said he's looking to do that in September or October. So Ed, I know you wanted an update on the timeline that you requested at our last meeting.
Cool. Thank you.
Perfect. Things are moving forward.
Yeah, it's good to hear that there's progress. In the
Yeah.
slope, okay, Tim. Did you see it or did you just talk to about it?
When I saw it, it was freshly loamed and seeded, so nothing came up. I got a phone call from John today, actually, saying that the slope is already starting to vegetate with that rain we got some point.
Yeah, I was just hoping it was stable. That vegetation,
Yeah.
eventually, I'm sure.
It actually survived the downpour that we had. Was it, I don't know, Wednesday or whatnot? But it was remarkably stable for the torrential rain that we received that day.
That's great.
It's got to get through tomorrow too, right?
Is it heavy? I heard there's rain tomorrow. I didn't hear how bad. Okay. The straw will help a lot.
All right, and our next item is the Oak Hill update. Tim, did you have a couple of updates?
Yeah, so I'm sure you guys heard there were a couple fire incidents at Oak Hill last week. I've been talking with Fire Chief Steele McCurdy, and he's putting together a plan of some locations that could use some maintenance to improve the access on the fire roads. So once he has that put together, I'm gonna bring it to you guys and we can discuss. It sounds like it's not going to be anything too intense, but just things that probably should have been done, but haven't. But that was that.
Excellent. We are very efficient tonight. We still have 5 minutes, 6 minutes actually before our next hearing. Look at how good we are.
It's the
Is it the chair? Hey, it's the board. It's the board.
It's not the slightly smaller agenda.
It's been a
That
while
certainly
since
helps.
we've had this small of an agenda. Had a busy summer.
I know, it just doesn't feel right. It's like, wait a minute, hold on. We're missing something here.
Yeah.
Tim, did you have any other updates?
Let me think. What do we have going on? I haven't heard from. Oh, sorry, Carl. You had something?
I was gonna say, was there any update on the orchard, or is that just moving along? And I haven't really heard much on it.
About the parcel, or about the like the parcel that.
The whole thing.
Oh, yeah, I don't have any update on it.
Saw something about it was leased to somebody or other, and
Bernard has the lease,
the
right?
Indians communicated with him about the Neshoba brother. I don't have their, I don't know the name.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying, if anybody had untangled all that.
Yeah,
So, Carl, I do know that the property was leased to Bransfield, I believe is the name of the
sounds
tree.
yeah.
Yep. And so that's currently in effect. And I haven't heard anything more on. So, Tim, the parcel that was transferred to us at the last town
Yeah.
meeting.
So the main part of the orchard is currently leased at this
Yes.
point? Okay, all right.
And they are meeting with the Indian group, from what I have read anyway. What that'll end up doing, I don't know.
Do we know what the term of the lease is by any chance?
It's been a while since I've looked at the lease, Carl. I'll have to
No,
take a
that's
look
all
at that.
I kind of lost track of it, that's all.
Did we come up with any more information on the Workers' Credit Union parcel? I know that we saw the conditions or whatever, but does it allow them to build on that other side where it's all wet?
No, shouldn't. It's expired.
Okay, so then how are they? I guess you
They're
could lease.
they're just looking to sell the land right now, right? At least the land. So nothing will happen until they lease it, and then whoever they lease it to will have to come in front of us.
Okay,
Whatever their plan is, right?
sure. All right.
Well, I guess in the matter of killing time, not that it's of any really huge importance, but Oak Hill, I believe it's the crossing of the yellow and the blue trail. There is a ground nest of yellow jackets.
Ooh.
I went out there yesterday and sprayed them. We had, I think it was one of the land stewards reported the nest to us. His dog actually got stung, I think, like 10 times walking over it.
Yikes.
And he actually went back to that section and put up signs, little temporary signs in the ground saying that there's wasp and to be aware. And I flagged off all the trails, all 4 of those trails leading up to that intersection, and they should still be flagged off. I'm going to be going out there on Thursday to see if it was effective. But for now, that area is temporarily closed off. As well as another section of trail that I got to yesterday over the trail that runs from Wellington to Great Road. Closer to Great Road, behind the houses on Dean Lane, there's a bald-faced hornet's nest that I actually walked about 1 foot from. Remarkably did not get stung, but I also sprayed that one and ran to the car. So that section of the trail is also temporarily.
Just heard something else about those particular ones, and apparently they can remember a human. So like,
Oh,
if you
lovely.
sprayed them, like when you've gone back out there, they would have remembered you. Apparently, like they can distinguish.
So
I'll
when
have
they
to send
knock on
Lauren.
your door, Tim.
I'll have to send Lauren out on Thursday.
Yeah.
We do have a hand raised.
Yes.
For the-
Ann Spiegel, did you have a question?
All right, thank you. Just a quick question, I guess, because I'm looking on your agenda and I notice there's no public input or public anything. Am I reading that correctly? That I'll need to save it, I guess, for the next meeting?
Did you have a question or a statement you'd like to?
I'm trying to clarify from some earlier remarks about, well, two specific ones. When will that special meeting be, or was that just, I kind of got lost as the conversation was going. When will the special meeting be between the Select Board, Parks and Recs, and your committee about Lakeshore Drive in that area?
So tentatively, it appears that September 8th. Tim, do I have that date right?
Yeah,
We'll be
Yeah,
there-
so we're gonna try to get it.
Right.
Yeah, it's not going to be the already set meeting. The next select board meeting is on September 8th, and we're going to try to have a joint meeting with the select board and Parks and Rec at that meeting.
And then it will be raised at our following Conservation Commission meeting, our regularly scheduled commission meeting.
The 23rd.
Yep.
And did you have another follow-up question?
Yep. Yep. Sorry, I couldn't figure out if I was muted or unmuted for a second. And I guess one of you, and I apologize because all of your faces are fairly new to me. One of you had stated that the docks around the lake, the only one public is right by the park. And I'm sorry, like by basically on the beach, right? And I'm well aware of which dock you're referring to, or so I think. I don't think there are signs for any other docks around Long Lake claiming that they're private, maybe to the right of the beach when it's people's property. But was that just assumed that other people have made them private, or was that a public statement? I guess just as I clarify.
It was probably me. I did a lot of that talking. I guess I would assume that it would be whoever installed it had installed it for their own use. Didn't say, "Welcome, town. I put a dock in for you, for everybody."
I just, and then I'll stop because I know you have something at 8:00. I think I read on your agenda. I've overheard you, but I know that I've seen Parks and Rec use not just the dock on the beach, but other docks with their programming. So I guess I'll be tuning in specifically to hear, and maybe they don't even realize that their instructors are using a variety of the other docks. I don't think I've ever seen the docks be rejected by people in the neighborhood as I'm walking my dog along the lake. I don't have one of the docks, but it's just a point of interest for me. So just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Gotcha. Thank you, Ann. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll open up our 8 p.m. continued public hearing. Notice of intent, 97 and 99 Mill Road, DP file number 204-1022, construction of an electrical equipment area. Is there anybody here to speak to this?
Yeah, I'm promoting over everybody right now.
And Chase, good evening.
Hey, y'all. How you doing? Sorry I'm late.
Oh, no worries.
You better not slow us down now, Chase. We've been on a roll. We're on time.
Sitting on a train. I don't think anybody wants to listen to me yammer on anyway.
Good evening, everybody.
Dave Ketchen, AGM from the Light and Water Department. How's it going? I've got with me tonight Steve Byrne, Dan Sievers, as well as Matt Silverman from the Water Department as well.
Excellent. Welcome, everybody. Did you guys want to jump in?
Steve, do you want to kick things off?
Sure. First, Michael, thank you for bringing to our attention that Novec 1230 was discontinued, but we've had a lot of discussions with Samsung and LS Energy Solutions, and I did forward what I tried to do was an overview about what we have learned and what Samsung and LS Energy Solutions are doing, in case they have to replace any of those chemicals in the future. What they're doing to make sure that they are compliant with, any replacement solution or materials to put into the container if it were to be discharged. I think that was the main question and the main issue that came from our meeting, if I understood it correctly.
Yep. No, that was definitely something we talked about. And, I did see the summary. Tim forwarded that along for us. So I appreciate that.
So aside from that, I think the deputy chief seems supportive, seems to really understand what their response would be like. He doesn't have it defined, but he seemed to be pretty well educated from my perspective in terms of how the fire departments are reviewing these. So for whatever that's worth for you guys, he seems to really understand it and seem to be educated and have some resources behind him. So
excellent. Did we have any follow-up questions for Steve or Dave or Dan?
Yeah, and Andrew, I had one. I had, because I wasn't able to make that meeting last week, I had a conversation with Dave and Matt about the use of this chemical, which has recognized ecotoxicological effects. At least that's what the safety data sheet says. And the ability to use this chemical safely in a watershed. And Dave, I don't know if you guys had contemplated changing out the design in some way. It looked like the alternative chemical that Steve is proposing to use is the same chemical, just a different manufacturer. That is the same chemical structure. So I know you guys were looking at or thinking about, do you have or need additional storage capacity? And I'd be curious to know where you guys got to with that.
I'm going to have to kick it over to Steve and Matt. I missed that meeting as well, Chase. My wife just had a baby, so I've been out of the office. So I don't know, Steve, if you can touch on that. Was that touched on at the meeting on the site?
It wasn't. It sounded like Chase was asking something directly to the water, something about the water department and concerns about it. So we're not proposing to use any alternative for what Samsung has certified and all the certifications that are going to be needed for us to show and construct this storage system. They're not proposing to change that. The FK5112, I think is what you're referring to, Chase. That would be something of a replacement if they did not have any Novec 1230. So I think the question is more towards the water.
Replacement in a manufacturing. Yeah, I want to be clear, though. It's a replacement in a manufacturer context. It's the same chemical.
Correct. Yep. Agreed.
Yeah, Steve, what Chase, myself, and Matt had talked about was looking for an alternative that did not contain that chemical, or some sort of containment, whatever solution we could think of that would alleviate this issue.
And maybe I started on second base here, so let me explain where I'm at. My concern is that this chemical in the fire suppression system has recognized ecotoxicological effects, and we're proposing to store it and use it to put out a fire if needed in a delicate ecological resource area. So my question was, do we need additional storage capacity? Can we replace this chemical? I don't care who manufactures it, with a different chemical that is not ecologically toxic, something else to. I'm open to alternatives here, but I'm a little concerned about using a chemical that has ecotoxicological effects, according to the safety data sheet, in an ecologically sensitive area.
Okay, so Dave and I had talked through this before, and I had stopped looking at other solutions. There are other battery energy storage systems that don't use the Novec system. They use different forms of suppression, or some don't have any suppression at all. But though that would change the footprint, and we were looking to continue along with this solution. So I haven't reviewed any of those. There are certainly other options out there. We can certainly look at containment if we want to look at that. My understanding was, I'm not an expert on fire suppression at all. My understanding of this chemical was that once it's discharged, it actually vaporizes. So I don't know if that changes, Chase, what you're thinking is going to happen within the environment. I have no idea, and I respect what you're asking. My understanding from what Samsung and LS said was that if it ever leaked within the container, which is a concern, they have that containment within the container itself. And if there was ever a fire, then this would discharge and it would vaporize. So I don't know if that would affect, if it would be sprayed afterwards.
No, I understand I understand the design application, but it is nonetheless stored as a liquid. It doesn't instantaneously vaporize. And we're talking about using a chemical in an ecologically sensitive area. And I think my 2 cents, and maybe the rest of the commission feels differently, but my 2 cents is we should explore what other alternatives are available here. I'm more than happy if the rest of the commission wants to go forward, then we can just put this on a shelf. But I'm concerned.
Just to jump in here, Tim, can you re-promote Matt? He was
Oh yeah, sorry.
presenting the Light and Water Department at this meeting as well.
And Chase, while you're waiting, I totally agree with you. I mean, if there's an alternative that can be used that doesn't have these forever chemicals, then I think that should be explored to the fullest. Or whether that's having to increase the footprint or if it means not using it and then add in containment. It just seems like the smarter alternative for the town and for that resource area.
So
We did talk early on. I know I asked about containment or something, and it was basically said we don't need one because of the units that are going to be on the slab and whatnot. Maybe this just revisits that. How do we contain it if it comes out?
So I do see that Matt is with us now. Good evening, Matt.
Hi everyone. Sorry, I had to rejoin because my camera wasn't working on my computer. So yeah, I mean, I can kind of just weigh in from our perspective as far as what we kind of look for. Obviously, it's different from what you guys are looking for from a conservation standpoint, but typically with any types of projects like this in the Water Resource or Aquifer Protection District, we're looking for potential impacts to human health if there were, if there was a release and it got into the groundwater system. So we looked at the SDS also from that standpoint. We didn't see anything specifically concerning as far as human health, but as Chase mentioned, this is kind of a gray area because obviously we don't want PFAS contamination, but PFAS is thousands of different compounds, and as far as what we review, we go pretty strictly with the town bylaws. So we kind of consider like the 6 regulated compounds in terms of drinking water standards to be, hazardous chemicals or toxic chemicals. I didn't really see anything in the SDS related to ecotoxicological properties. I know, Chase, you had mentioned there was an SDS for either the same chemical or a similar chemical that had to explain that a little bit better because I think it was sort of, not addressed in the SDS we received. But, as far as the water department review, we definitely had some good conversations with Steve and with Dave. We didn't consider it that we could classify it as a hazardous or toxic chemical use. But typically for any type of concern with release, we would definitely want to have containment and then potentially secondary containment. So I know we talked about having like a tight tank on site, but I think there needs to be a little bit more clarity as far as if that compound was to be released as a liquid and the fire department were to, treat that as, exercise in spraying water to prevent the fire, then obviously you have a huge volume of liquid. So we'd have to get a little bit more information on how they would actually be extinguishing the fire there. Because in terms of what was proposed, I think there was enough storage for the actual liquid itself. But then, if you introduce water mixing in with that, that's a different story.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, and I would agree with Chase and Kyle. I mean, that does seem like a very valid thing that we should perhaps be looking into for the ecological value of the site. Did anybody else have any comments on this?
Not so much on the chemicals. I was looking at just the site layout and researching, see that there's a guideline or regulation about there needing to be 100 feet around the storage systems. And, looking at the map, that's definitely not the case. Particularly it's NFPA 855. So I was hoping you could talk about that and whether, does it apply in this case? Is it something that needs to be addressed in the layout?
I'm not sure what you're referring to, Michael, but every time I hear 100 feet, it's basically New York City and has to do with the residential and being very dense population. We don't run into 100 feet setbacks for anything that I'm aware of. There are setbacks that we have. I think it's like 10 feet. There's setbacks between the containers. There's setbacks to the fence, but I'm not aware of anything saying that we need to be 100 feet from anything. Another fire department that we're working with referred to, he wanted, they were talking to us about dry piping, which your deputy chief was not interested in. And he wanted it to be 100 feet from the closest BESS. And that was related to what you're referring to. But there is nothing that I'm aware of as a regulation that says there has to be 100 feet setback from everything.
Yeah, well, that's like I said, NFPA 55 says it needs to be 100 feet from any structure, from the lot line, really anything of consequence.
Yeah, we're NFPA 855 compliant. I can look at that, Michael, but I think it has to do with like residential and New York City specific, but I can look at that.
Okay, well, if nothing else, then for clarity, I am trying to understand it myself.
Thank you.
To circle back to this concern about the ecological hazards, you're right, Steve, that the 3M SDS doesn't say anything. It's sort of obtuse about it. It says contact 3M to get information. The globally harmonized system of classification and labeling, the GHS, classifies this chemical as, quote, harmful to aquatic life with long-lasting effects. So hence my concern about whether or not this is something that we can find an alternative for, or we can find storage for, so it's at least contained in the event of a fire.
Thank you, Chase. Does anybody else have a comment or question for the team? Do we have any public comment or question? I see a couple of people in the audience. All right, so perhaps moving forward with this in terms of direction for the team, it does seem like exploring an alternative for this chemical or perhaps storage would be appropriate for the next meeting. So I suppose we'll continue this until, sorry, I don't know what month it is, September 2nd? Is that okay with the team? All right, with your permission, we'll go ahead and continue to that date. And we'll work on that next time around. But thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And congrats, Dave.
Thank you. Back to it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right. It is now 8:20. We'll go ahead and open up our continued public hearing. Notice of intent, Frog Pond, Zero Lake Drive and Zero Lake Shore Drive, DEP file number 204-1026. Is there anyone here to speak to this?
Yes.
Good
Maria
evening.
from Tie and Bond, and we also have Jean Christie from Tie and Bond tonight.
Welcome. Good evening. And I see Steve is also here.
Yep.
Perfect. Did you want to go ahead and jump into things?
Absolutely. So we went on a site walk with many of the commission members, and based on that walk tonight, we have two different plan sets. We have the kind of original design that we showed at the last meeting with a few edits to it, just based on what we had been asked about, things like bringing in the specific color coding to make it easier for everyone to read. And then we have an option B, which incorporates a few more of the suggestions. So I'm going to share option A first, just to remind everyone what that site layout looked like. And then I'm going to share option B so that we can see the differences.
Excellent.
So can you see that now?
Yes.
Okay, so this is option A, and the primary things that have changed on this one is that we updated this staging area to more accurately show the available space, and we added this lawn area here as some staging to make up for that. But otherwise, we've really just added in the coloring for the different resource areas to make this easier to understand. So this is the forebay area that we're proposing to take the excess sediment out of. This is what we had originally proposed for temporary storage of that sediment. And then these are the laydown areas for walkway materials to redo the walkway. We also added in this segment of the walkway that was previously missing. So that's the original layout. Based on the conversations during the walk, we are proposing, instead of having a laydown area here where there's a lot of trees and it's really hard to get over here, we actually realized that this parcel is also owned by the town and is all grassed, so it's much easier to temporarily store that sediment over here, and much easier to restore when the sediment is gone. So that's the big difference between those two plans, is that we've moved the sediment storage over to this lot across the street. The other thing that we did is we had a really good discussion, or a really good point was brought up about that this forebay area, part of the problem with it is accessing it. So we added in some permanent access in these two spots so that the Department of Public Works can continue to actually maintain this forebay as regular maintenance. So those are the really primary differences between what we had originally proposed and this. So with that, I think I'd like to turn it over to see if there are questions. I think our hope is that this meeting can move forward with one of these options.
Thank you. So just to recap for the rest of the board, Ed and Sarah and I went out with Lauren and Steve on a site visit a couple of weeks ago, and we did walk out there with the original plan. And I think one of our major concerns with option A was, as you're coming down Lakeshore Drive, the plan involved essentially taking down a number of trees to access the top left corner of this site. I'm not entirely even sure if the property line was where we thought it was in terms of town-owned land. So it was problematic on that side, as well as storing material so close in the wetland buffer within the 50-foot was a little troubling for us as well. And that's how we essentially looked across the street and said, hey, wait a minute, this is a Concom field across the street. Why aren't we storing sediment over there? But Ed, did you have anything you wanted to add, Ed?
I just wanted to note that you don't have the plan. This plan does not reflect the property line concern. It acts as if it's going straight out to the retaining wall, when in fact we saw property markers that suggested that wouldn't be able to happen. But as for the alternate plan, I got on board with it with one major caveat, that be restored to its current state when they're finished. And everybody said yes, that wouldn't be a problem. I just want to make sure that that's in the conditions somewhere. So as the fact they're taking another strip of on the right-hand side for additional storage, that needs to be restored back to its condition as well when they're finished.
Absolutely. It's substantially easier to restore a grassed area.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So definitely happy to do that.
And Ed, that's a very good point. I mean, in looking at this plan, I mean, it makes it look like there's a pretty wide area between the existing path and the property line when on site. I mean, it was a very tight area.
Right. Oh yeah.
Perfect. Did any commissioners have questions or comments about either plan or any suggestions?
I had a question, Andrew. Maria, the sediment dewatering that you're proposing to do there, how are you going to dewater that? How are you managing the water, and where is the infrastructure going to go to do that?
So it's a pumping bypass system. So we have here, I'll zoom into this to make it a little easier to see. We'll just look at the forebay. So there's a cofferdam that we're going to set up here where the pipe is that enters the forebay, and we're going to put a pump right in there when we make the cofferdam with a hose, and there's a discharge dewatering bag that will do some filtering, and then it will be redirected into the main part, of the existing larger wetland. So the water is going to go exactly where it always goes. It's just going to skip this basin.
I guess I was more asking, sorry, I should have been more clear about the sediment processing and storage area to the west. It looked like it referenced dewatering over there as well on the other parcel of land.
Yes, so we expect that there's going to be some water in the sediment. What we had proposed and what we discussed at the last meeting was that the outer edge of this containment will have some lining in it to keep water from just like gushing out, so that the water will essentially be directed downward as far as filtering. So that's how we're proposing to manage the water. I mean, there's
okay, so you're proposing to re-infiltrate that water in that footprint?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know that you'll be able to actually get that water in the ground? The reason I ask is I know many of the septic systems in this area are mounded because the groundwater elevation is relatively close to the surface.
I'm going to pass that question to Jean, if you don't mind.
So no problem. Because this is happening on the surface, isn't an excavated basin, like a stormwater basin. I don't think groundwater will be an issue. We are hoping that when we do this sediment removal, it is at a dry period. Like we're hoping we have a solid dry period for once. And that, the sediment that is coming here to be dewatered isn't just like wet mud. So I don't think the volume of water we're actually looking at here is that substantial. And it is a temporary feature. So like the impact to groundwater I don't think will be there. If it was a longer duration, multiple applications of wet sediment, then we'd have a concern about maybe what groundwater impacts might look like.
Gina, I appreciate what you're saying. We don't tend to approve designs based on hope.
This isn't a stormwater management system either, so it's like, you know, it's there for a couple months. It's not a permanent feature. And because that's the existing surface and where existing groundwater is, it's just like having your hose running a little bit, kind of just how much water is coming out. I still don't think that it has an impact to groundwater because of the short duration of saturation.
What's your? I appreciate that you don't think that. What I'm trying to understand is why don't you think that?
Because this
what's
isn't
the basis for that conclusion?
This is, you know, we have to be able to take this sediment out from the sediment forebay. If you know, when we schedule this work, having it happen where we've, you know, pumped out the water from, you know, the actual sediment forebay, it starts to dry right there from evaporation, maybe not an infiltration at that point. As you're moving the sediment out, water is also falling out at that location too. I think we're trying to solve a problem, but we don't know exactly what the water content of the sediment is going to be. I don't think we can predict that without fully dewatering that sediment forebay for a long duration of time to make sure that it's as dry as it could possibly be. But at the same time, we can't really move super water-laden sediment. It's not like we're moving the water over there, we're moving the sediment over there.
Is it any different, Chase, putting the sediment, say here, using this plan, versus putting it where the first plan proposes? They both will still have some amount of water in them that will still infiltrate into the ground. And we're talking, what, a couple 100 feet difference between the two?
I would have the same concerns regardless of where it's located.
All right, I just wanted to make sure I understood.
And Gene, my concern here is not the conditions under normal or ideal operating conditions. What I'm concerned about is heavy rainfall, elevated groundwater tables, and the potential to not control this sediment stockpile and have it essentially run down the road uncontrolled.
Chase, that's not going to be an issue. It's standard practice when you have a sediment stockpile to cover it, specifically to prevent stuff like that, when it has to stay in place for a little while. So you're not going to have things running down the road. Part of why we are lining the edges of it, as well as it will be covered as part of standard practice when it's just sitting there, when it's not being actively added to.
I will say I run dredging projects all over the country. I just disagree with you. This is not how I would design it. But I understood, and if the rest of the commission is happy to go forward, then so be it.
Out of curiosity, Chase, what would your alternative be?
I would want to know that we can infiltrate the amount of water that would be expected to be in the sediment. I would make an assumption about how much water we're expecting to be in the sediment. I would want to know the elevation of the groundwater table. I would do an infiltration calculation to show that this pad could accommodate that amount of water and a 100-year storm without discharging that water. I wouldn't design this based on hope.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I had assumed there was going to be some kind of bottom to this, that it wasn't just going to be open to the ground when we were talking, whenever that was. I didn't realize it was just going to be open for the water to, go to the groundwater.
That would be the alternative option here, right? That you can containerize the water with a frac tank and have a pumping mechanism to draw this down.
Marie and Gene, would that be something that you could potentially do on site?
It's a potential. I'd want to talk to Steve about it separately, though.
I'm not, to be clear, I'm not opposed to infiltrating the water. What I want to know is how much sediment are we going to have? How much water do we expect to have? How quickly do we expect it to infiltrate? And how do we know that we're not going to overwhelm this capacity?
I think that's a fair question that Chase is asking, especially with the largest storms that we get unexpectedly. So I would agree with Chase on his line of questioning.
In terms of the amount of sediment, this has been designed to remove approximately 99 cubic yards, less than 100, because we're trying to make sure that we're staying under certain limits so that you don't need additional permits for this. It's also essentially the amount of sediment that needs to be removed anyway to get it the forebay to original conditions. So that's your amount. As far as the open bottom, we had discussion about this at the first meeting, that the open bottom was really kind of necessary, the infiltration, in order to get the sediment to dry out, because it can't really be moved until it's dried. So there's a balance between doing some lining to keep things from going where they shouldn't and allowing it to dry out. Are there any other concerns about this? Because it sounds like there's some discussion that needs to be had before we can move forward with other stuff. So I would just like to make sure that we are addressing everything that needs to be addressed.
How are you covering the stockpile? Should it rain, to keep more water from getting in?
Absolutely. It is standard practice on construction sites to cover stockpiles.
Cover what, with just putting plastic over it, essentially?
Yeah, you generally put polyplastic over it and, put weights on top of it to keep it from moving.
Yeah.
So I think just to circle back to the very beginning of the hearing, we do have two alternatives in front of us. Option A with access over by the existing path and sediment storage and dewatering in that same area on the side of Lakeshore Drive versus the sediment storage on the field. Did we want to determine which one we want to move forward with to start, and then we can kind of build from there?
Andrew, I just had one question. I'm just wondering what the impact on the neighborhood would be with the stockpile there. I mean, that's going to be pretty close to others' properties, and I mean, sorry, but is it going to smell, or will there be, will the neighbors complain? I guess that's what I'm wondering.
Both locations are close to neighbors. They're essentially the same, if you will. I don't know if the smell, though. That's a very good question. We didn't talk about that when we were on site.
Michael, that was my other concern, and I just think that we need to specify that during construction they maintain on site a biodegradable foaming system or odor suppression system. They're pretty standard for managing dredge sediment, which can smell pretty bad sometimes.
Okay, good. Okay, great.
But that is sort of a minor concern that I had, that I do think we need to make sure we're clear about. Particularly the odor suppressant needs to be something biodegradable, particularly because we've got infiltration going on here.
Mm.
Very
We're
good points.
happy to accommodate that.
Andrew, you asked about which we prefer. I very much prefer on this property. I prefer option B. I don't disagree with Gene's assessment that this is probably fine. I just want to make sure we know that we're not going to wash a bunch of nutrient-laden sediment right down into the lake down the road. And I think we should
Absolutely.
know that rather than speculate about it.
We did talk about also, and it needs to be written out, the catch basin, there's at least one there, protected so that none of this can go in the catch basin.
Mr. Chairman, if I
Gina.
could just make a quick point.
Absolutely.
So we're looking at 99 cubic yards of sediment removal. So about 300 cubic feet, if my math is right. That dewatering area that we're showing is about 30 by 40 feet. So it's about 1,200 square feet. So if you take that 300 cubic feet over that 1,200 square feet, you have about 3 inches. If my math is right. I did do it really quickly. So I'm just want to just get that expectation of what that looks like, the volume might look like, kind of out there so that people can just really understand like what that actually could look like. When we're talking about odor, I agree odor is a potential here with organics and such. But just sharing information, if my math is right.
Thank you.
So how are you getting it out of there? If it's only a couple of inches high, you're going to end up digging the ground under it to get rid of it?
You mean in the stockpile storage area?
Yeah, I mean,
no, it's going to sit on the ground so it can be disposed of elsewhere. It's not going to be disposed of at this location.
No, I know that, but you're going to, how are you? In my mind, I had assumed there was going to be this big mound and you're going to dig out with a tractor. And when you get to the bottom, you're just kind of careful about not taking too much, but something that shallow.
It's not a big machine work. It's a small machine work at best, likely handwork.
Okay. All right. I wouldn't want you digging up all the
also, realistically, like you can spread it out so that it's that flat within the stockpile area, but it's not going to be perfectly flat. Probably going to be a pile in the middle of that.
So then, if we're only looking at 99 cubic yards of sediment, why do we need to keep that on site for up to 2 months? I'd rather see it go off site sooner rather than later.
We are saying that it might be that long for it to dry out enough to move it. Steve might be able to explain this better than me, but there are special handling procedures that he has to follow for moving it because it's from the stormwater system.
You're already moving it across the street. Can it be moved into a truck instead?
No, this was discussed at the site walk. As I said, Steve can do a better job explaining if you don't mind, Steve.
Yeah, no, that's fine. In order for me to dispose of it, it has to dewater. Mostly, I got to treat it dredge material like catch basin cleanings almost. So the catch basin cleanings, when we clean a catch basin, it's full of water, so it dewaters before I can then dispose of it. So this is being treated exactly the same. So it's got to dry out a little bit before I can then load it in a truck and remove it from the site.
I'm struggling with that's going to take a couple months. Here's what I'd like to see.
It might take a couple months.
And I think that's worst case scenario. Yeah, worst case scenario.
A lot less. That's our worst case scenario because we want it to be conservative.
As shallow as you're talking about, though, it's going to dry out fast, isn't it?
Most likely.
I mean, I can live with this as is, given that we've only got 100 cubic yards of sediment. I don't know how we would condition this, but I'd like to see it offsite as soon as we reasonably can. Again, my primary concern is we're right next to the road. If we do have an overflow, it just flows right down the road, ends up right in the lake. All that's not good. If we can just keep the timeline to a bare minimum, I think we have a lower likelihood of a storm event that washes it away.
We did talk
causes
about
infiltration problems.
we did talk about side barriers and what have you to keep it protected and contained. That was definitely a discussion that we had. This isn't going to just be dropped there and allowed to go wherever it wants to go, as I understood.
That is correct.
No, but my concern is that we need to not just plan for the water that's in it, we need to plan for stormwater as well. We're creating a bathtub.
Well, yeah, I hear you there. No, I have the same concern. When you said it, I was like, well, how can the dirt go anywhere? We're going to contain it. But the water going through the dirt, that's a problem.
So Chase, we condition it that they have, backup equipment on site, and any a day before an anticipated event of an inch or more, or whatever you think is appropriate, these pumps are put in place, and they have to pump the water either back into the splash pad or back into the forebay. And that's somebody's there to monitor and run it.
That seems like a reasonable middle ground, Kyle. Something with a silt bag on it and an ability to pump it back across the road into the forebay.
Yeah.
How does the board feel about that?
Sure.
Yeah, it seems reasonable.
Yeah, I agree.
Marie and Jean and Steve, is that something that you could incorporate?
I think logistically during construction, absolutely, it can be included. But as a reminder, we do, the stockpile is covered with some sort of plastic covering, so that the idea is that water's not even getting into there from stormwater. It would just shield off into, either the road to the right or to the surrounding grass area around
Sorry to clarify that when you cover it, you're talking about covering your entire containment area, not just the stockpile of material?
No, I was just talking about the stockpile area.
Well, right. So even if you cover the stockpile, that water would sheet off and still go inside of your containment area, doesn't it? Or are you creating a tent top over the entire containment area? Even if it sheets off, it's still going to flow into the containment area, right?
Can you go back to the picture of the containment area that you had, that one in the bottom?
Sure.
Are you doing the cover rather as just on top of here, or are you taking the cover all the way to the outside of the outside bales and so forth, so that nothing gets into that space at all?
Usually you just cover the pile of dirt with a little bit extra around the edge, so that you have enough sheeting on the side so that you can put weights around it to keep it from lifting up.
Right, which means that area that straw bears and silt fence area could still fill up with water. Again, it would probably take an extreme event for that to happen, but it could still.
It could, if I understand correctly what the request was. The request included that really what we're doing is we're paying attention to when a big storm is coming. So I think that the request is that we check daily once there is soil in there what is expected, and if a storm of over a certain size is expected, then we could bring such equipment.
I wouldn't say bring. I would say have available already.
Well, sure, have available, but in terms of setting it up so that it's not across the road unnecessarily.
Of course, yeah.
But not to beat a dead horse here, but we're going to have a pile of fine grained sediment in here that is covered in not infiltrating water. That whole area is going to accumulate. Let's say it's a 100-year storm, which is like a 6-inch storm, right? That's going to be 6 inches of water over that entire footprint, which is all going to push to the sides. It's not going to infiltrate quickly because our stockpile is both covered and it's fine grained material, which means we risk blowing out our containment. That's what we're trying to get at here. We have to be prepared for that, especially if we're going to capture all of the stormwater within this sediment management area.
I understand the concern and the intent, and we are trying to make sure that we are understanding what you're asking of us and that it's doable. And I think that what we've discussed is having the equipment available so that we can control water if we happen to have a large storm that comes while this is being dried out. And that we are agreeing to monitor what the weather is so that we can make sure that it's set up in a timely manner when it's needed. I think that, you know, we've also discussed that the stockpile is going to be moved as soon as it can be. There's a, you know, worst case scenario that we've discussed, but realistically, I think what you're really wanting is that we check it, you know, every few days to say, hey, this is still too wet to move, or no, we can move this now so that it can get moved as soon as possible.
Is that not your plan?
And
that's what we would do.
To that end, that's where you're going to have to balance covering it and uncovering it. I'd rather, frankly, see it uncovered as long as there aren't odor issues during the day, so we can dry it out and maximize our chances of getting it offsite as quickly as we can. But I can live with this.
So in terms of when we do condition this, Chase, we'll have it mainly uncovered, a heavily monitored site, I suppose, maybe every other day checking for water, and to Kyle's point, having the infrastructure in place and machinery rather in place, that if there is, you know, standing water within this little pendant area, that it can be removed.
Seems reasonable. Perfect.
So just circling back, it sounds like option B is the winner here. If I don't want to, you know, just engaging the board, and I think we've given our team from Tie and Bond quite a bit of direction already tonight. Was there anything else that the board's concerned about, or do we have any suggestions for the team when they come back on September 2nd?
I'm confused. I feel like we've discussed things and we kind of agreed on conditions that would address the concerns. So is there not a reason that we can't vote on this with those conditions?
Yeah, it's not the same thing, right? If we agreed with this layout, and if our only concern was really controlling that water, then we're hoping to take care of that with a couple of conditions.
Perfect. Yeah, if the board's comfortable moving forward, absolutely.
Let's do that, and then we can just take care of conditions.
Yeah.
2 weeks from now if we really need to. Otherwise, we can let Tim and Lauren write them.
Perfect. Does that sound like a plan? Is the board comfortable moving forward with perhaps closing the hearing tonight? And
as long as whatever gets finally approved has the required conditions that we talked about.
Yeah, I mean, Tim would be willing to share those with us before it gets finalized if needed. And like Chase said, discuss in 2 weeks. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Yeah,
excellent. Perfect. Well, with that said, would anybody perhaps like to make a motion then?
Yeah, sure. We'll make a motion to close a public hearing and issue an order of conditions for the Frog Pond property, 0 Lake Drive and 0 Lake Shore Drive, DP number 204-1026, with a waiver as conditioned.
Perfect. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Ed
Foltz, aye.
Michael
Livingston, aye.
Kyle
Maxfield, aye.
Carl
Melberg, aye.
Chase
Gerbeck, aye.
Myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I do believe that was actually our last item of business for tonight. Is there anything else that anybody would like to bring forward before we take a motion to close? All right. With that, would anybody like to make the final motion?
I move that we close the meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Final roll call vote of the night. Michael.
Michael Livingston, aye.
Ed.
Ed Bolsack.
Kyle.
Max, bye.
Carl.
Carl Melberg, aye.
Chase.
Chase Gerbeck, aye.
And myself, I. Great meeting, everybody. We're adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.